Welcome back to the 15th video. So in this video, we'll get the collisions and then we might start looking at power-ups. So for the player and then for the mummies, we'll do two different ways. The player, we're going to use sort of the more traditional. We'll put a collider and a rigid body on him. And then for the mummies, we're going to, because they're using the nav mesh already, we'll just sort of work with the nav mesh there. Let's do the player first because that's kind of what we're used to. So I take my player there, and the reason why he can walk through walls, right, is that there's no collider. And if he's moving and we've got a collider, we need to make sure that we put a rigid body on him as well. So let's do that first. We'll put a typical Capsule Collider. And it should do pretty well. So let's just make sure we're in the scene view, find our player. There it is. A little low there. So let's just bring it up. Capsule Collider, and on the Y there. And then we'll just have to sort of extend it down a little bit there too. So just make the size, the height. Height probably doesn't really matter as long as it's probably could have kept that at 1 now that I think about it, right? And then I'm just going to bring him in a little bit. He's a little bit rotund there, so just decrease the radius, something closer to his body there. Okay, so that's probably good for him, maybe a little shorter. On the Y, let's bring it down, sorry. Just a little bit, I don't think he's 2 meters. Seems a little bit shorter. And it really doesn't matter too much, right? Because he's just going to be always vertical here. The next thing, if we've got that, we need to add because he's moving around, like I said, a rigid body. Just add your typical rigid body there. And I think that's okay. Let's just check him out, see if he can hit the walls. Find a wall here. So now, yeah, now he's not going through walls. He's sort of stopping. And he theoretically, we might have to look at that, those mummy, the sarcophagi. We'll see that later on. But at least he's not going through. Now the mummies, though, as you can see, they can come through the walls. So let's fix that up. And like I said, they're running on the nav mesh. So we just need to sort of find that nav mesh again and then be able to modify it. So we should be able to just go to our navigation tab, which is there. And like I said, you know, they can walk through it because the nav mesh is underneath it. So what we'll do is these object ones. So we're going to click on all the cubes. We should probably organize these two. So I'm going to click all the cubes here. So Control, cube, 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 cube. Whoops. There we go. I think that's all of them. And what we're going to do is make them navigational static and not walkable. Okay, so they basically can't go in there. And then we have to go to bake, and we'll bake that in. So basically what it's done now is, if you can zoom in a little bit, there should be a little, yeah, you can see a little bit of a boundary on the edges there. So let's just play test that. So once these mummies come out, there they are, they shouldn't be able to come through the walls. I guess let me come to the other side here so we can kind of see. Yeah, so you can see them wandering around the outside there, right? They're not coming through. Okay, so that's pretty good. That's looking a lot better. And yeah, so now we've got a nice navigatable, is that a word? Play area. We've got the mummies coming after us. So the next thing we're going to look at is making a power up. So maybe make the gun shoot faster or do a few other things here. So to add a power up, we'll first just put some sort of object here. And what we'll use is that old idea of the on trigger enter. So when the player touches it, then the power up will occur. So to do that, we will use, I guess, our Pro Builder. And we'll add just a Pro Builder window, new shape. And I think what you can do is add a sphere. And the sphere is it's got a kind of a neat shape. You can obviously increase the number of subdivisions to smooth it out, but I think we'll just leave it at that. I think the size, something like that, we can always change it after, right? We just scale it down. So we'll use that. We'll build it. So there it is. We can close this up now. And there's our power up. Bring it down a little bit closer to the ground. Somewhere around there, whatever, we'll move it after. Okay, so there is our power up. I guess we'll call it power up. Sounds better. So the icosphere, power up. And like I said, we're going to add a couple things to it. One is, so it already has the mesh collider on it, and we'll set that to is trigger. So I guess we'll set that to convex and is trigger. And so I think that's good. So we've already got the collider on it, and now we just need to add the script. So we're going to add a power up script. So let's just go to our scripts here. Scripts, new script, C# script, and we'll call this power up. I guess we can apply that right away. Let's just do that before we forget. And open up. So once it's open here, what we're going to do first, might as well get rid of all of these, is work a little bit on, like I said, that on collision enter. That's the trigger. So void on trigger, enter, and we'll set that up here. Now, what we'll do is we'll see if the collider contains sort of the sort of like weapon script. So to do that, we'll create a var here, and we'll call it player weapon. So we're looking for a player weapon, and basically if the thing that was collided, right, so the other, we're going to check to see if the component is, what did we call it here? We called it player weapon. So we're looking for that script. So basically any object that walks into this will be checked to see if it has that player weapon script. So what we're going to do then is if that's true, so if the player weapon script is there basically, there's a few things we're going to do. So we're going to the player weapon, okay, so we're actually going to put this, we're going to sort of, to this object, we're going to run and we don't have this made up yet, we're going to add a power up. So that power up will start. Then we're going to have to pause it for a little bit. So we're actually going to do a coroutine, and we're going to disable, I guess we'll call it disable after delay. Okay. And what are we going to disable? It's going to be the player weapon. So again, there's lots that we don't have here. And then, yeah, well, then we'll get back to that. I guess we'll turn it off here later. So let's figure out a couple little things. So come out of here. We did a coroutine. So I'm going to start that coroutine. So i.e. numerator. And then it's going to be what we call it here, disable after delay. And it's going to take, like I said, that player weapon. So the type player weapon, and we'll call it specifically player weapon. Good. And then, so what we'll need is a little bit of a pause because we want, so yield, return, wait for, and we'll make the amount of time, we'll make that a variable there, so a duration. And then we'll make another sort of method here, so player weapon dot remove power up. Oops, power up. Did I capitalize the other one? What did I add power? Okay, I kept that lowercase. We'll just keep that consistent there. Good. So yield return. Whoops, I forgot the new. There we go. And so duration, we haven't made the variable for that. So let's just put that up here. I think I'll make that a serialized field just in case we want to change it. Doesn't need to be public, but we'll do that. And so that'll be a float, I guess, and then duration. Good. So that gets us our basic idea, right? So when we collide with the power up, or whatever collides with it, it will check to see if we can, you know, add that component. If it doesn't have a player weapon, this would just get skipped, and then this would just get skipped, right? So if the player weapon is there, if that's true, then we're going to run this add power up, and we have to start a coroutine because we need that to go along, right? We need it to do this for a certain period of time. Now, just before we sort of make these methods here, these functions, what we should also do, I almost forgot, is that we need to turn off the power up. We don't want to be able to keep walking through and adding, using the power up again and again. At least at the moment, there should be some sort of delay where it disappears. So what I'm going to do is get the component, right, of itself here, right, because we're on the power up. So on the collider, and we're just going to set the enabled to false. So that way you can't run into it anymore. And then exactly the same idea with the renderer. So we're going to grab the renderer, and set the enabled also to false. Enabled, false. Right. So that should, like I said, remove any, basically it's going to get rid of the power up there, so we don't have that going on again. So what we need to do, like I said, is do the add power up and remove power up, and those are going to go on the player weapons themselves. So let's come over here, and we might as well put it somewhere. So we're going to make these public. Void add power up. Keep that lowercase. Okay. We'll just get those started, and then public void. Do we call it remove power? Good. And so I think then, good. Okay, I'm just going to save that. Just make sure that these, yep, so now we don't have these as issues anymore. I'm going to save that up, and we'll get working on this here. So we'll just finish up this little bit here with on the player weapon script. We've got our add power up function and our remove power up function. And so what they're basically going to be here is we need to make sure that they're accessing the script. So power up, depending on which power up we're sending across. Okay, whoops. And so they're in there. So in here, we're going to sort of choose from a variety of power-ups. So we're going to have more than one type of power-up. So actually, before I finish that, let me just bring this over to... There we go. What we're going to do here, I'm just going to come up to the top. Under the next fire time, I'm going to create a list of power-ups. So this list, and this is going to be from the power-up function. And... we'll call these power-ups. Keep that capital, I guess. And oops, I didn't mean to put the equal sign there. So we're going to call this list power-ups, and it will be a new list on that power-up script. So list power-up. There we go. Good. So we'll be able to grab whatever one, and we might do it randomly or whatever the case is. We'll see that in a little bit. So I'm just going to pop down here. And so basically we're going to add the power up. So I'm going to do power ups dot add, and we will add whatever power up it chooses. Let me get the right one. Power. I think that's good. Getting confused with the power-ups. And the other one too, right? So this is to the list, right? Power-ups dot remove the power. All right, so I think that's probably good for this video. And when we come back, we'll sort of keep working and actually make these functional.